So if you watch, like, a cheetah on a nature documentary, the narrator almost always gives you this total masterclass in evolutionary biology.
Absolutely. It's always about the mechanics, right? They point out the non-retractable claws for traction, the oversized nasal passages, the flexible spine.
Right. And science points to those physical traits and offers this very clean, very comforting explanation. You know, built for speed,
Hmm?
predator and prey, survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it's a very mechanical way of viewing the world because, I mean, we inherently prefer things to be visible and neatly categorized by pure survival mechanics.
Exactly.
If a creature has a really prominent trait, we just assume it developed that trait specifically to conquer its environment.
But, and this is the entire premise of our deep dive today, what if we applied a totally different lens to all of that?
Which is such a fascinating pivot.
It really is. Like, think about the traits you value most in yourself. Your speed, your patience, maybe your protective nature. What if those aren't actually evolutionary triumphs or, badges of honor?
Right, what if they're just incredibly elaborate psychological armor?
Yes. Today, we are exploring this brilliant piece of contemporary allegorical short fiction. It's basically a modern fable that reimagines the origin of three very specific creatures: the cheetah, the orangutan, and the hippopotamus.
And rather than looking at their biology, this text does something wild. It treats their physical traits as literal manifestations of their deepest psychological traumas.
Which is heavy, but so compelling.
It forces you to look at a perceived superpower and ask a really uncomfortable question, is this strength actually just a lifelong coping mechanism?
Man, that hits close to home.
Yeah.
So to even begin answering that, we have to understand the setting of this fable first.
Right. The world before.
Exactly. The text paints this picture of a mythical ancient past, a time before the world, as the author puts it, learned to keep secrets from itself.
Which is just a gorgeous line.
So good. And in this early world, there are no separate territories, no distinct biomes at all. There is literally just one single massive river.
It's flowing through everything.
Yeah, it starts as meltwater on a gray mountain, falls through this dense canopy where the sun only hits the floor like scattered coins, flows out into a vast golden grass, and then ends in a really wide, undecided marsh.
And the defining feature of this entire landscape is just the absolute lack of boundaries. Everything that would eventually require a name, to separate it from something else. It was simply drinking from the same current.
Right. The text actually notes that the cheetah, the orangutan, and the hippo were neighbors in this era.
But not neighbors in the way we think of it, like living in adjacent zip codes.
No, the text says they were neighbors the way a flame is neighbor to smoke, or like a held breath is neighbor to the breath just before it. They just bled right into one another.
And at the source of this single river is a creator figure. But she isn't a person, and she's not a physical animal either.
Yeah, the creatures call her Mother of First Water.
And I love how the text describes her simply as a permission.
A permission, not a god on a throne, just a permission.
Right. She is a low hum underneath every separate heartbeat. Her entire function in this early undivided world is to let hunger be hunger and let stillness be stillness, without either one ever having to justify its own existence.
That concept of permission is just so crucial to this whole text.
It really is. It represents a state of total, unburdened existence. There's no judgment at all, no hierarchy of needs.
Reading that description instantly brought me back to a very specific phase of childhood.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about the time in your life before you had to define exactly who you were, or like what value you provided to society.
Of the freedom of that.
Right, when you could be an astronaut, a dinosaur, and a chef all in the exact same afternoon in your backyard, and nobody told you to pick a lane.
That is exactly what that undivided world in the fable feels like. It's total boundless freedom. You are pure potential.
The potential is intoxicating, right?
It is, but the text introduces the central conflict of the story right away. It's the inevitability of the division. Because things couldn't remain in that state of perfect, unbounded unity forever.
The single river has to fracture.
Yes. And this is where the philosophy of the text really starts to challenge our modern sensibilities, I think.
Yeah, because if division isn't framed as a punishment at all. It's not like, well, nobody's getting kicked out of metaphorical Garden of Eden for eating an apple here.
Right, there's no original sin.
Exactly. The text says, the fracturing of the world arrived, the way morning arrives, inevitable, and faintly merciful.
Faintly merciful. That is a phrase that carries so much psychological weight.
It really does.
The fable makes a profound claim about identity here. It states that nothing can hold every shape at once forever without shaking itself apart.
I have a really hard time swallowing that, honestly, just based on how we operate today.
Because of the culture we live in?
Yeah. I mean, we are conditioned from day one to maximize our potential, keep every door open, diversify your skill set, never burn a bridge.
FOMO, basically.
Exactly. The prevailing wisdom is that having infinite options is the ultimate freedom. But this text is arguing the opposite. It's saying that keeping all your options open, living in what it calls the trembling world of maybes, is fundamentally destructive.
It is fundamentally destructive to a cohesive sense of self. I mean, think about the psychological paralysis that comes with infinite choice.
Oh, the paradox of choice. It's awful.
Right. When every door is open, you are constantly haunted by the ghost of the lives you aren't living.
Wow. Yeah.
And the creatures in this myth, they were already, secretly, wordlessly, starting to wish for one true thing instead of that entire trembling world of maybes. Because to forge a true identity, you have to sacrifice the abstract potential of being everything so you can actually become something.
It's like the terror of committing to a college major or a career path or a partner, because choosing one reality means you're literally killing off 100 other possible realities.
And eventually, the sheer gravity of not choosing shakes you apart.
So they realize they have to choose a shape. And the first one to step forward to make her bargain with Mother of First Water is the cheetah.
And the text makes a point to note that she arrived first because she could not help but arrive first at anything.
Like it's compulsion.
Exactly. Her arrival is entirely compulsive.
And the physical description of her stepping up to the water is just pure poetry. It says her body is an argument for what she's about to become.
The anatomy of speed.
Yes, a narrow skull built only for looking forward. A spine curved like a question with only one possible answer. Her tail is already learning to act as a rudder for sharp turns she hasn't even made yet.
That's such a brilliant image.
And this part got me. It says she has tear streaks already drying on her face before she's even cried them.
You observe that anatomy, and the immediate assumption is ambition, right? A drive to conquer space and time.
Right.
But when she speaks to Mother of First Water, she doesn't ask for speed out of a desire for dominance. She confesses a profound existential terror.
She is utterly terrified of stopping.
Yes. She dreads the single moment when the world will finally stop moving and require her to simply be somewhere.
Just to exist.
Exactly. To exist in a state that is still, unhunted, and unhungry. She believes, at her core, that she cannot survive that stillness.
Think about how we view speed and efficiency in our own lives today. We frame it as a superpower, the ultimate apex trait in corporate culture or just modern life.
The hustle.
The hustle. But the fable reframes it as an elaborate avoidance tactic. It makes you think of that person who fills every single second of their schedule.
Back-to-back meetings.
Back-to-back meetings, listening to podcasts at 2 times speed while they shower, constantly booking the next trip. They aren't doing it because they love the hustle. They're doing it because they are deeply terrified of what thoughts will bubble up to the surface if they have to sit alone in an empty room with their own mind.
The clinical psychological term for that is experiential avoidance.
Experiential avoidance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we use frantic motion as a literal anesthetic against our own internal landscape. And Mother of First Water recognizes this terror in the cheetah, so she gives her exactly what she needs to escape the stillness. She grants her the forward-falling instant, over and over, without end.
And this is the catch. Every bargain in this myth comes with a heavy trade-off.
Always. She gains the ability to outrun everything in the physical world except the crushing exhaustion that follows a gift like that.
That deep emptiness.
Right. She is condemned to the emptiness after the chase that no physical arrival ever quite satisfies. And furthermore, her roar is permanently taken away.
Which is actually a brilliant biological detail because real cheetahs cannot roar.
They can't. What remains is this high chirping sound. The text describes it as bird-like. So for the rest of time, even when she is fully grown and taking down prey, she sounds like something newly born that hasn't yet finished being startled by the world.
Oh man, that is so haunting. She gets her constant motion, but she is stripped of the voice of authority. She is forever running from a void she refuses to face, sounding perpetually panicked by her own existence.
It's tragic, in a way.
It really is. So, if the cheetah's solution to existential dread is to frantically outrun it, the next creature to step forward chooses an entirely different strategy. We move out of the grass and into the patient canopy.
The orangutan.
Yeah, where slowness becomes her whole argument. The myth says she didn't so much walk as she simply arrived.
Her visual presence is incredibly grounded. Her fur is described as the red of something that has been burning quietly for a very long time without ever catching.
I love that line.
And she tests each branch with the slow patience of someone who has decided that falling is a conversation she is simply not interested in having.
Which is such a deliberate contrast to the cheetah's frantic forward-falling instinct, right?
Completely opposite.
But the orangutan's strength, her legendary patience, is also masking a deep fear. She doesn't ask for the treetops because she wants to look down on the rest of the world from a place of superiority.
No, she is desperate to escape the noise.
The sheer volume of the world.
Yeah. She is terrified of losing her own single thought in the cacophony of every other creature's wanting. She is desperate to hear what she calls the one true sentence underneath all the others.
We can all relate to that specific flavor of exhaustion, I think. Not the physical exhaustion of the cheetah, but the mental and emotional fatigue of overstimulation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the sheer weight of other people's opinions and demands and emotional baggage. It's that visceral urge you get to, delete every app off your phone, throw it in the ocean, and move to a cabin in the woods.
Yes.
You just want a boundary between your own thoughts and the endless demands of the world.
She sees isolation as a protective measure against enmeshment.
Right.
So Mother of First Water grants her the height of the canopy. She is given the unbothered quiet of the upper branches, and a mind so deliberate it can hold a single question for a decade without ever putting it down.
But her trade-off is perhaps the most melancholy of the three, I think.
It is total, unyielding solitude.
Total solitude.
Even her own kind will rarely cross her path. Her motherhood becomes a profoundly solitary endeavor. She keeps a single child pressed to her chest longer than almost any mother anywhere is granted. But the text includes this heartbreaking caveat, and still, in the end, not quite long enough.
It's devastating. And to maintain this life away from the noise of attachment, she has to accept this really strange nightly discipline.
The nest building.
Yeah, nothing in a life built this close to impermanence is allowed to stay fixed. She's required to build an entirely new nest every single night of her life, high in some new tree, and she must abandon it by morning without a shred of grief.
It is a forced daily practice of radical detachment. Why do you think the author gave her that specific burden?
Because permanence invites attachment, right? And attachment invites noise. It actually reminds me of the practice of creating a sand mandala.
Oh, like the Tibetan monks?
Yeah. Monks will spend weeks painstakingly placing colored grains of sand into this intricate, beautiful design, only to sweep the entire thing away the exact moment it is finished.
Right, to practice non-attachment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It proves that you can create something beautiful without needing to possess it forever. The fable says she abandons the nest each morning as though she agreed that a home you cannot keep is still allowed to be a home.
Which is beautiful. If her deepest fear is losing her mind to the attachment and demands of others, she has to physically practice letting go every single day. Her physical home must be temporary so her mind can remain an impenetrable sanctuary.
Wow. So we have seen a creature outrun her dread and a creature climb above it. But that brings us to the third animal, and this is where things get really dark.
The hippopotamus.
Yeah. What happens when the fear you are harboring isn't an external force like stillness or noise? What happens when the thing you are most afraid of is yourself?
The hippopotamus arrived last. The text says she had been listening from underneath the surface the entire time, just her nostrils breaking the water, the rest of her submerged in what the myth beautifully terms the exact temperature of not yet decided.
And the fable shatters a really common assumption right out of the gate here. It states unequivocally that the hippo never asked to be gentle.
No, not at all.
It notes that gentleness is simply a story the world would later tell about her out of pure wishful thinking.
Which actually aligns perfectly with reality. Hippos are statistically one of the most dangerous and aggressive animals on the planet.
Terrifyingly aggressive.
Yeah, and the myth leverages that underlying danger to reveal the darkest psychological fear of the three.
She is afraid of being fully seen.
She harbors a deep dread that if daylight ever found every part of her at once, what it would illuminate would be a violence too enormous to forgive.
A violence she can't even forgive herself for.
Exactly. She possesses a destructive force that even she does not entirely trust herself to carry.
Think about the concept of the Jungian shadow. We all have parts of ourselves that we repress because they are socially unacceptable or frightening.
Oh, for sure.
We all have a capacity for cruelty, for deep selfishness, for explosive anger. And most of us build our entire personalities around masking those traits. We become chronic people pleasers, or we adopt this perfectly curated, polite exterior specifically to hide the destructive potential we know is lurking in our own depths.
The hippo is literally terrified of her own shadow.
Yes. So Mother of First Water offers her a compromise that honors this fear. She gives her the river to vanish into by day and the land to walk by night. She belongs completely to neither realm, and she is swallowed whole by neither.
But her trade-off is a physical manifestation of her internal burden. Her skin is cursed to weep a thick fluid that is the deep red of a wound that never quite finishes healing.
That red sweat.
Right. It serves as a visual warning to the rest of the world. It ensures that nothing watching her, no matter how still or slow she appears in the water, will ever fully forget what she is genuinely capable of.
And in exchange for this camouflage, this ability to hide her violent potential in the murky water, she accepts a really heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
She becomes the guardian of the threshold.
Yes.
She stands half submerged at the boundary between the safety of the deep water and the danger of the shoreline. The text says that anything trying to cross toward new life has to pass something willing to be feared on its behalf. She literally takes on the burden of being a monster so that others can pass safely.
It is the ultimate sacrifice of one's reputation. She accepts being misunderstood and feared because she knows her own dark capabilities, and she actively chooses to channel that darkness into guarding a boundary.
It's like the ultimate tragic anti-hero story. And so once all three creatures have negotiated their shapes, the division finally happens.
The single river finally does what it had been rehearsing all along. It forgets how to stay one thing.
And the unified world fractures into distinct, isolated habitats.
The mountain claims the orangutan in her high branches. The golden grass keeps the cheetah, forever arriving but never staying. And the undecided marsh keeps the hippo, weeping her red warning into the water.
And the text explicitly states they never meet again in any named land.
They're completely isolated by the identities they chose. The very traits they adopted to survive their fears become the walls that separate them from one another.
And this is where the story turns back to something really beautiful. The author leaves us with one final haunting image. It's a shared memory that transcends their physical separation.
The afternoon light.
Yes. The fable says that on a particular kind of afternoon, when the light turns the color of something remembered rather than something seen, all three of them suddenly stop mid-action.
The cheetah freezes mid-stride in the grass. The orangutan stops mid-reach in the canopy. The hippo pauses just where her skin meets the air at the surface of the marsh.
And without knowing why, something old and wet and shared moves through all three of their bodies at the exact same moment.
For a split second, their nervous systems remember that they were once one water going one way.
It gives me chills.
It really is a profound acknowledgement of our shared psychological foundation because, no matter how rigidly we construct our adult identities, no matter what elaborate coping mechanisms we transform into our defining personality traits, the cellular memory of that undivided self never entirely vanishes.
That original world of infinite potential.
Exactly. It still echoes underneath the armor.
Which brings this entire myth right into your living room or your car or wherever you're listening right now. Take a hard look at the shape your life has taken. Think about the traits you are most proud of. The habits your friends compliment you on, the skills you put on your resume.
The things you get rewarded for.
Right. If we strip away the biological explanations and the societal rewards and look at the murky psychological truth underneath what fear built you.
That is the question.
Are you running from stillness like the cheetah, terrified of the void? Are you seeking silence and non-attachment like the orangutan, exhausted by the demands of the world? Or are you hiding your true depths, guarding a threshold like the hippo, because you're afraid of what people would see if you stepped fully into the daylight?
And in those quiet, unguarded moments of your life, when the light hits just right, do you ever feel that old, wet shared memory of the trembling world of maybes that you had to sacrifice just to become the person you are today?
The text suggests our identities are just monuments to the things we spent our lives trying not to feel. But I want to leave you with a final, really provocative thought to mull over something the fable itself doesn't explicitly answer.
I love this.
If our greatest strengths are truly just armor built around our deepest fears, what happens if we actually face the fear? Think about it. If the cheetah finally sits still and realizes the void won't destroy her, if the orangutan actually lets someone into her nest, If the hippo steps entirely out of the water into the sun, does the armor dissolve? And we no longer need the coping mechanisms that defined us. Do we lose our identity entirely, or do we finally get the chance to become something completely new?